Hi everyone, good evening. We are Team JUCC and we are here tonight because we want to jumpstart your career in clean energy. So as you can see, we have our juice, we're ready to go, and I want to introduce the team: Fernando Fuentes, Christopher Freeman, Jennifer Williams, and myself, Steve Hiltebeitel. So we're going to take you through the problem that we identified at the Berkeley Energy Summit, talk about the solutions that we think will actually solve that problem for students across the country. We're going to then go into the accomplishments that we've made as progress towards that solution, and then finish up with our transition plan and next steps. So take it away, Fernando.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very grateful to be here representing Spark and the JUCC-E team. No business etiquette tonight. We're going to dive right into the problems that we identified back in October in a design thinking session. So, long story short, students both at the undergraduate and graduate level are facing very high barriers to entry into the clean energy industry. It's a fast-paced industry that can't afford to train individuals like other industries can. If you think about investment banking, rotational programs, they take students from any walk of life as long as they can prove they're hardworking, they're fast learners, and they're somewhat smart. And through the course of 2 years, they get trained and they stay in the industry. The thing is, with clean energy, it's very dynamic. The growth requirements of the industry result in more inter-industry migration of human capital as opposed to organic growth within the industry. It's a catch-22, and it's very frustrating for myself. The past few months in my job hunt, I've heard the typical, I'll give you a job if you have experience, and to gain experience, I need that job, right? More problems. So without that first step, students like myself, well, I'm very stubborn, but other students become easily unmotivated and frustrated, and they just take the first opportunity that comes to the door. They never enter the clean energy industry. These career identification never happens, and the acceleration never happens. So the clean energy industry loses valuable human capital to other industries. The JUCC team, through primary research and also through our Spark network, have seen that there's a lack of resources for students to identify these opportunities and alleviate the opportunity costs that come with taking these opportunities. Opportunity costs come in many sizes and shapes, but just to give you an example, I have two job offers lined up for the summer, okay? One is through the traditional industry of consulting, and the other one is with an up and rising clean energy startup. The clean energy startup can't offer me such a competitive salary as the more traditional job offer, and it can't offer me some of the perks that are already integrated into those programs, like upscale housing for the duration of the summer internship and whatnot. And that's another barrier in itself that we need to help students overcome. And we see the problem as a double blind on the company side. Young clean energy companies don't have the HR in place to filter the best students throughout the nation, and they're mostly concerned with staying afloat in this dynamic environment, not so much with 18 to 22 years old. On the student side, these students don't hear about the opportunities of the less known clean energy companies that will become the Sun Edisons and the First Solars 5 to 7 years from now. They just hear about these companies once the media start heavily covering these companies. And by the time they hear about these companies, they've come into the mainstream. They're now competing to people with experience and 1,000 more individuals for the same job opportunity. With that said, I don't want to be negative, so I'm gonna hand it up to Chris, and we're going to talk about our solution.
All right, thank you.
You're doing a great job.
I'm more on the positive side. What does a program look like to solve all those issues that Fernando brought out? I want to make a program that basically breaks down all those barriers that Fernando just mentioned. So we need to connect students to these startups and young energy companies, and that right there is the selling point. If we can connect these really top students with specific skills and these companies that are looking for specific skills, that's the sell point. If we can give the student a stipend to help out the startup, that's great too, but that's just an added bonus. And as Fernando mentioned, these startups are busy. They're worried about their products and getting the word out. They don't have much time to look for these top students. So if JUCC-E can work with these companies to select the top students, that's great for them. And then finally, once we do get some funding, it's a great way for these companies to have good PR. Whether they want to look just good in the eyes of the public, or they actually are interested in clean tech. So with a program like that, what are the key elements we need? So we first talked to all these affiliate companies, young clean tech companies and startups. What are they looking for? What projects on an internship timescale? So 2 months at a time. Do you have a very specific goal you need? Whatever it is, a new piece of a website, some sales project. Once we have all those in, we would create an online application or some way for all these students to apply. The JUCC team and Spark directors would review all these student applicants, and the top students, specifically based by what skills they have and what these startups and young companies are looking for, they would be selected to be a JUCC student. And once they're selected, they would be welcomed into the Spark network. So what's an initial way we reached out to these companies? So we made these outreach packets, and there's 3. So the first one is the students, probably the easiest sell of this program. And these bullets for the following 3 slides will kind of outline these 3 thumbs up. So for students, it's easy. You could possibly receive funding to intern at a top clean energy startup, and you're going to gain valuable experience. They're going to have a specific project ready for you. The value to the affiliate companies, of course, is that it connects them to these students. They don't have to spend too much time looking. They know they're going to get a student that has the skills they're looking for. And again, if we're able to fund the students, that's a bonus, but a lot of the affiliate companies we talk to are just saying, if you can bring someone who has the skills we need, that's awesome. And of course, these growing companies, they gain visibility across this network of students. And finally, possibly the hardest sell is people we're asking money from. So what do they get out of it? These large companies, by giving us money, they're donating to the talent pool out there. What happens in a lot of cases, as these startups grow, these companies end up working back with them for a very niche skill that they need. So in the long run, there is a sell for these funders that they could benefit from whatever's coming out of these smaller companies. So I'm going to hand it over to Jen, who's going to talk more specifically about who we reached out to and what we've accomplished.
Yeah. So we as a group came together in the fall, as you all know, and we really gelled on this problem and thought that it was a solution problem that we could tackle in this time frame. And then over the last few months have done a lot of listening and research and documentation to see how this could actually be implemented. We started by listening kind of within the closer Spark network and getting a lot of feedback from advisors about key decisions. So just things like, should we reach out to just undergraduate students or all types of students? Then reached out to affiliate companies after that and got their feedback and heard from them a lot of ideas that were in line with the Spark advisors that we had spoken with. So they definitely felt that pain point. And the affiliate companies that we identified came after a lot of research from the Clean Tech Global 100 list. So we were really targeting high growth, really exciting new clean energy companies, a lot of times commercializing new technology or in all types of other fields, whether that was solar finance or energy solutions for the developing world. So we really tried to cast a wide net there and found kind of consistent interest and consistent desire for just that one piece of conduit reaching the right student groups or talking through with students what sort of professionalism was needed in an internship or helping students understand the risk perceptions in working at a startup that might not actually align with reality. So after we had this strong support from the Spark network and pretty good feedback from a group of affiliate companies, Chris put together a fantastic student survey, and we reached out to students to make sure that this perception that we had amongst ourselves was really kind of supported by a big enough group of students to implement a program. And the results, which are here, were awesome. So the cool feedback is that students want help getting these internships. They want them in the private sector. We, as a generation, kind of believe in the power of private companies and ideas and tech commercialization to get us through this energy transition as a country and globally. And so, as you can see at this bottom bullet, a lot of students really want to work at startups or in the private sector, even students that aren't necessarily in a program that is in economics, for example. The students we surveyed are from all these different disciplines, but would benefit from an internship in industry. And the other thing we found is that 75% of students surveyed knew a bunch of other students that they thought would be interested in this. And we really think that once this got off the ground, interest in it would snowball. We look at other aligned internship types that are either run by schools or by other kind of industry groups like EDF Climate Corps that is working to solve not necessarily energy specific but climate related challenges by placing students in companies. And we think there's a lot to learn and that this program could grow really rapidly. So after really, figuring out some of the details of this project, we got it all in writing in a white paper and have continued to hone a lot of the details there. We've built the first kind of groundwork for affiliate company relationships with a handful of really exciting startups that we can talk to you a bit more about. And we're really excited to see some pilot internships take place this summer 2015, and then grow this into a full cohort for summer 2016.
Great, thank you, Jen. So what's our transition plan? What are our next steps? You can see that we're continuing to build these partnerships with the companies that Jen had mentioned. So we have Amicus Solar Cooperative, Synode Systems, Natel Energy, Straight Up Solar, and Southern Energy Management. And these represent companies that have expressed an interest in working with us so far. There are some others as well that we're pursuing, but these are the main ones we wanted to highlight for today. So we then wanted to determine a marketing platform for promoting the positions that will be at these companies for the summer of 2015. We wanted to develop the application process, whether that's web-based, like the Spark Fellows process was, or some other type of thing. It doesn't necessarily matter as long as we reach out to as many students as possible. And to do that, we want to have or utilize the Spark and Energy folks' existing network. So to, again, cast this broad net, get these positions in front of as many people as possible so they have the opportunity to apply and have the opportunity to grow in the clean energy sector. We'll then assess the applicant pool, and this is where really another aspect of the value of JUCC-E comes into play. We will help match these students and their past experiences, their current studies, whatever it is that they're passionate about, with the actual companies that are looking for a specific type of person. And so that's something that's a very difficult thing to do when you're a startup, when you're a young clean energy company, and that's a big part of the value that JUCC-E adds. We'll then do some things to kind of organize the program and help add more value than just the experience at the affiliate company. So for instance, a mentorship program where a Spark advisor, perhaps a former Spark fellow, could help these students in their experience over the summer. We then also want to connect the students in some way, shape, or form. So perhaps bi-weekly phone calls, and at the end of the summer, some sort of meeting. Maybe they could go to a conference together. But the idea would be that they can collaborate at the end and share their experiences and understand, okay, this is what worked here, this is what did not work here. And they can then further develop after their experience in the JUCC-E program. And then finally, we want to evaluate what worked and what didn't, and sort of take that forward into 2016 and even make the program much better. That's the beauty of being able to have a pilot on a small scale. So then here's the timeline of next steps. I won't go into detail too much on this, but basically next 2 days we want to promote the heck out of this thing. We really like it. We're really excited about it. We hope you guys like it too. And we want to get as many people interested in knowing about it as possible. And I think it's a great place to do it here at MIT for the conference. In March, we want to do everything we can to hand this off in a very organized, very easy manner to Spark, but we will also be around moving forward to help with the transition, with advising on how this will go. And then in April and beyond, we'll continue to fulfill ongoing support roles, whatever those may take, depending on which resources are involved and who ends up being a part of the JUCC-E team. So moving forward then, Fernando is going to talk about his bio. We'll go through each of our status in life right now, what we're doing later, and then we'll kind of open it up to some questions. So go ahead, Fernando.
Well, I'm a senior at Penn State, graduating in May in energy engineering and energy business and finance. Currently writing my senior honors thesis in the intersection between crowdfunding and renewable energy. And I'm actively looking for a job in the space. Cuff. Anyone out there? And in the spirit of entrepreneurship, I eventually want to start my own thing, but I think it's been said before in this meeting, it's a huge industry, so I want to learn as much as possible before starting my own clean energy company so I don't screw it up. And that'll be it.
Okay, so I'm a first-year PhD student at Cornell. My research is actually in biofuels. So basically how we can better understand how they burn and reduce emissions as much as possible. So I'd like to maintain a strong presence in this JUCC program, as I think it can really go somewhere. And kind of exciting news, just over the weekend, I joined a startup at Cornell as a lead technical engineer. So it's basically a platform for Airbnb hosts, just providing them a lot of tools that like big hotels have, for example, for pricing and giving them the tools that these hotels have to better understand their customers and things like that. So a lot of real back-end nerdy engineering stuff you guys don't want to hear about. So, and then after my PhD, from the skills I hope to learn at this startup, combining these coding skills and analytics and all that stuff, and put it into energy, because I really think energy's and climate is one of the biggest. You can look out the window. I mean, there's Boston's gotten like 100 inches of snow this year, so I think climate's like the biggest issue of our time. So yeah, joining a growing company or consulting for one eventually.
I'm Jen Williams. I'm finishing up a dual degree in North Carolina and moving on up to Washington, D.C. to work with a solar finance firm called Soul Systems. I'm really excited to be part of the Spark Network as well.
And Steve Hiltebeitel, hoping to finish my MBA in May of 2016. There's some other stuff on there, but the biggest thing coming up is the last bullet point. My wife is giving birth in the next few weeks, so Thank you very much. And on the note of thank you, before we get to questions, we do want to thank all our advisors, everybody who helped us throughout, all the Spark Fellows. It's been, a good couple of months. We really appreciate everything that we've learned, and I think we couldn't have done, half of this without all the support we received. So thank you very, very much to everyone who's helped us along the way. We'll now take your questions.
So to go back to the matchmaking that you were talking about.
It's a good word for it, yeah.
Yeah, are you considering like an algorithm or just like literally what are you thinking there? Like how?
I think that it's a work in progress and that we will learn from the first year of kind of pilot connections to see how hands-off we could make that at scale. To start, I really think we will benefit from doing a more hands-on, individualized approach like this. If we do these 5 or so internships this summer, those will definitely be probably best suited to kind of publicizing positions widely and then helping the companies that we're working with sift through applicants, and then maybe some hand-holding throughout the summer to kind of create a cohort and make the management of interns as minimal as possible for those startups. By asking them to take on more interns, we'd be kind of standardizing the process and making it easier. In future years, yes, I think that it could be a lot more automated, and that maybe you're applying, but you don't get to choose exactly where you're going. And EDF Climate Corps, for example, doesn't tell you what your match is going to be. You kind of just get chosen by the affiliate company, and it's a kind of a yes or no, but there is strong signaling involved. Another kind of large-scale matchmaking process that people love or hate is like Peace Corps, for example. You get to rank your your choices, but you don't actually get a final decision from the student side.
So you talk about wanting to create this cohort of students who are really interested and kind of engaged in the energy space, and I kind of think back to the fellowship program. And do you see any overlap with the fellowship program and the and your JUCC-E?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I'm going to let Chris take this one. That's okay, because Chris is our student expert. But I think the short answer is yes, and then Chris could expand a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think we borrowed from Spark quite a bit actually. I think we all realized, I mean, all the teams pretty quickly that having all disciplines and all levels and not really worrying about that actually ends up building a stronger team. I mean, I've learned more working with these guys since we're interdisciplinary than I would if we were a bunch of engineers. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
I also think that like the network as the Spark network grows over time, this will be a really wonderful way for a lot of people to stay engaged in a different role. Be it while we are at all in our new positions, kind of highlighting the internship opportunities at those companies to students at our old schools or to the Spark Fellows of next year, things like that.
Yeah, and one quick thing, it would be a really cool, experiment if the Spark Fellows, then let's say half of them become JUCC-E interns over the summer, right? Or it can just keep flowing and cycling, and you could start as a freshman, right? So I think we have one freshman in the room, if I remember correctly, and that's a whole lot of experience you can get in 4 years, and then also grad students and so on. So it would definitely be something we would leverage.
But yes, the idea is for JUCC interns to meet themselves, kind of like how we did at some point in time in place.
So is there a way to maybe, I mean, obviously we're all going to be graduating for the fellowship, maybe utilizing that network to actually land these new interns a position, like some sort of networking way to where, like, as fellows continue graduating, utilizing that network to see, like, oh, you work at this startup, or, like, you're working at this.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully this becomes exponential and just goes like crazy.
For better or worse, like the clean energy space is pretty small. You end up getting to know people, internship opportunities get posted to specific university club Facebook pages, and that's how things kind of spark, for lack of a better word. And so we see this just as a way to grow that.
All right. Oh, please.
I think it's a great idea. We work for an incubator, and we don't have the capacity right now to try and help run an intern fair. That's one thing we did last year, and someone who helped us do that, they don't have the capacity either. And finding interns, obviously, is such a huge thing for companies to do, and finding those people is an issue. I think that face-to-face kind of aspect of finding an intern is a huge thing, especially when it's a little bit mission-based. Like these people, they're coming out of the finance world and kind of taking a chance. So I think the benefit of the network over the uncertainty of the job kind of be a huge case, but how do you keep that almost face-to-face aspect of it if you scale, I guess is my question. Kind of like, it'd be great to get someone in front of you and be able to see that. What will differentiate it from a regular resume job as you scale it, kind of? Because you guys are differentiating yourselves, obviously, by doing this program, by doing, you're trying to get a job by differentiating yourself. If it becomes bigger and becomes a standardized program, how will students differentiate themselves? I guess that's kind of my question.
I agree. There's a lot of qualitative aspects that make our job as a facilitator. For us to do a good job as a facilitator, we take these qualitative aspects and needs and wants from both the student side and the company side, and we match them as best as we can. How do you scale up to that? Well, if you scale up, say 100 times or whatever, I see this as imagine as the JUCC-E hosted career fair.
Yeah, I'm not trying to challenge it at all. It's a really good idea, and I think that's where the kind of returning fellows and alumni becomes almost like a university network of people where.
But I think you are touching on a really good idea, which is that for this to be super successful doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have 500 interns every summer. It might actually, and this is, I think, something that we will learn by doing, is this might be a better suited program to have 20 or 50 or 10 interns every summer and make them really prestigious, really well funded, and absolutely off the wall successes. And And then that's a different type of network that develops, but is still bringing cachet and lowering perception of risk for those types of internships. And even if you don't end up being a Spark intern or a JUCC-E intern, you're seeing that as a pathway in a way that maybe people aren't right now. Or like you're just seeing those company names more frequently. Like maybe all the startups in your accelerator wouldn't otherwise actually even have their name out there in front of that students at Energy Class.
Exactly. Like they don't have the capacity as well,
Yeah.
kind of. So it's almost outsourcing it in a great way, but to keep it
It's hard to
quality,
know that,
kind of.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like outsourcing, but you get quality control.
Right. And especially like a lot. But the people that they end up hiring, a lot of times they end up for an internship end up hiring them because they've taught them so much, kind of. So it's like you want to find the right ones. And it's a huge problem. So I think it's.
We don't have all the answers. We just think that this is at least going to be like a start of a project.
It's a need on both sides, like you said.
No, exactly. It's hard.
Yeah, that was a great question. And actually, I see Mark standing up. I'm sure we're out of time. If anyone has any last question, because then we have a big finale. Any more questions? No? All right, well then I'm going to turn it over to Fernando.
Thank you, Steve. Speaking for the JUCC team, we are very, very grateful to, like you said, the Spark advisors we've talked to and the Spark network. And I personally saw a great benefit in the Spark network, and I exploited it through Mark, and he helped me reach a lot of people and get some awesome conversations going. To the students out there, while sitting in the room and out there listening online, we can only advise you guys to stay hungry, stay very ambitious, and stay juicy.
Stay juicy, yeah!